This is the children of Hurin, the Hurin.
Chapter 10. Turin in Nargothrond. At first, his own people did not know Gwindor, who went out young and strong, and returned now seeming as one of the aged among mortal men, because of his torments and his labours, and now also he was maimed. But Finduilas, daughter of Orodreth the king, knew him and welcomed him, for she had loved him, and indeed they were betrothed before the Nirnaeth, and so greatly did Gwindor love her beauty that he named her Feilivrin, which is the sheen of the sun upon pools of the Ivrin. Thus Gwindor came home, and for his sake Turin was admitted with him. For Gwindor said that he was a valiant man, dear friend of Beleg Cuthalion of Doriath. But when Gwindor would tell his name, Turin checked him, saying, I am a Garwen, the son of Umarth, which is the blood-stained son of ill-fate, a hunter in the woods. But though the elves guessed that he took these names because of the slaying of his friend, not knowing other reasons, they questioned him no more. The sword Anglahel was forged anew for him by the cunning smiths of Nargothrond, and though ever black at its edges, shone with pale fire. Then Turin himself became known in Nargothrond as Mormigel, the Black Sword, for the rumour of his deeds with that weapon, but he named the sword Gwothang, Iron of Death. Because of his prowess and his skill in warfare with orcs, Turin found favour with Orodreth, and was admitted to his council. Now Turin had no liking for the manner of fighting of the elves on Nargothrond, of ambush and stealth and the secret arrow, and he urged that it be abandoned, and that they should use their strength to attack the servants of the enemy, to open battle and pursuit. But Gwindor spoke ever against Turin in this matter, in the council of the king, saying that he had been in Angband, and had had a glimpse of the power of Morgoth, and had some inkling of his designs. Petty victories will prove profitless at the last, he said, for thus Morgoth learns where the boldest of his enemies are to be found, and gathers strength great enough to destroy them. All the might of the elves and Edain united sufficed only to contain him, and to gain the peace of a siege, long indeed, but only so long as Morgoth bided his time before he broke the Liga, and never again can such a union be made. Only in secrecy lies hope of survival, until the coming of the Valar. The Valar, said Turin, they have forsaken you, and they hold men in scorn. What use to look westward, across the endless sea, to a dying sunset in the west? There is but one Valar with whom we have to do, and that is Morgoth. If in the end we cannot overcome him, at least we can hurt him, and hinder him. For victory is victory, however small, nor is its worth only from what follows from it, but it is expedient also. Secrecy is not finally possible. Arms are the only wall against Morgoth. If you do nothing to halt him, all Beleriand will fall under his shadow before many years are past, and then one by one he will smoke you out of your earths. And what then? A pitiable remnant will fly south and west, to cower on the shores of the sea, caught between Morgoth and Osse. Better than to win a time of glory, though it be short-lived, for the end will be no worse. You speak of secrecy, and say that therein lies the only hope. But could you ambush and waylay every scout and every spy of Morgoth to the last and least, so that none came ever back with tidings to Angband? Yet from that he would learn that you lived, and guess where. And this also I say, though mortal men have little life beside the span of the elves, they would rather spend it in battle than fly or submit. The defiance of Hurin Thalion is a great deed, and though Morgoth slay the doer, he cannot make the deed not to have been. Even the lords of the West will honour it, and is it not written into the history of Arda, which neither Morgoth nor Manwë can unwrite? You speak of high things, Gwindor answered, and plain it is that you have lived among the Eldar. But a darkness is on you if you set Morgoth and Manwë together, or speak of the Valar as the foes of elves and men. For the Valar scorn nothing, and least of all the children of Ilúvatar. Nor do you know all the hopes of the Eldar. It is a prophecy among us that one day a messenger from Middle-earth will come through the shadows to Valinor, and Manwë will hear, and Mandos relent. For that time, shall we not attempt to preserve the seed of the Noldor, and of the Edain also? And Círdan dwells now in the south, and there is building of ships. But what know you of the ships, or of the sea? You think of yourself, and of your own glory, and bid us each to do likewise. But we must think of others beside ourselves, for not all can fight and fall, and those we must keep from war and ruin while we can. And send them to your ships, while there is yet time, said Turin. They will not be parted from us, said Gwindor. Even could Círdan sustain them. We must abide together as long as we may, and not court death. All this I have answered, said Turin. Valiant defence of the borders and hard blows ere the enemy gathers. In that course lies the best hope of your long abiding together. And do those that you speak of love such skulkers in the woods, hunting strays like a wolf, better than one who puts on his helm and figured shield, and drives away the foe? Be they far greater than all his host? At least the women of the Edain do not. They did not hold back the men from the Nirnaeth Arnurdiad. But they suffered greater woe than if that field had not been fought, said Gwindor. But Turin advanced greatly in the favour of Orodreth, and he became the chief counsellor of the king, who submitted all things to his advice. In that time the elves of Nargothrond forsook their secrecy, and great store of weapons were made, and by the counsel of Turin the Noldor built a mighty bridge over the Narog from the doors of Felagund, for the swifter passage of their arms, since war was now chiefly east of Narog in the guarded plain. As its north march, Nargothrond now held the debatable land about the sources of Ginglith, Narog, and the fringes of the woods of Nuath. Between Nenning and Narog no orc came, and east of Narog their realm went to the Teiglin and the borders of the moors of the Nebenuig. Gwindor fell into dishonour, for he was no longer forward in arms, and his strength was small, but the pain of his maimed left arm was often upon him. But Turin was young, and only now reached his full manhood, and he was in truth the son of Morwen Eledwen to look upon, tall, dark-haired, and paled skin, with grey eyes, and his face more beautiful than any other mortal man in the elder days. His speech and bearing were those of the ancient kingdom of Doriath, and even among the elves he might be taken at first meeting for one from the great houses of the Noldor. So valiant was Turin, and so exceedingly skilled in arms, especially with sword and shield, that the elves said that he could not be slain, save by mischance or an evil arrow from afar. Therefore they gave him dwarf mail to guard him, and in a grim mood he found in the armories a dwarf mask, all gilded, and he put it on before battle, and his enemies fled before his face. Now that he had had his way, and all went well, and he had work to do after his heart, and had honour in it, he was courteous to all, and less grim than of old, and so that well nigh all hearts were turned to him, and many called him Adanadel, the Elfman, and most of all Finduilas, the daughter of Orodreth, found her heart moved whenever he came near or was in hall. She was golden-haired, after the manner of the house of Finarfin, and Turin began to take pleasure in the sight of her and in her company, for she reminded him of his kindred and the women of Dorlomin in his father's house. At first He met her only when Gwindor was by, but after a while she sought him out, so that they met at times alone, though it seemed to be by chance. Then she would question him about the Edain, of whom she had seen few and seldom, and about his country and his kin. Then Turin spoke freely to her concerning these things, though he did not name the land of his birth, nor any of his kindred, and on a time he said to her, I had a sister, Lilith, so I named her, and of her you put me in mind. But Lilith was a child, a yellow flower in the green grass of spring, and had she lived, she would now maybe have become dimmed with grief. But you are queenly, and as a golden tree. I would I had a sister so fair. But you are kingly, said she, even as the lords of the people of Fingolfin. I would I had a brother so valiant. And I do not think that Agawen is your name, nor is it fit for you, Adanadel. I call you Thurin, the secret. At this Turin started, but he said, That is not my name, and I am not a king, for our kings are of the Eldar, as I am not. Now Turin marked that Gwindor's friendship grew cooler towards him, and he wondered also that, whereas at first the woe and horror of Angband had begun to be lifted from him, now he seemed to slip back into care and sorrow. And he thought it may be that he is grieved, that I oppose his counsels, and have overcome him. I would it were not so, for he loved Gwindor as his guide and healer, and was filled with pity for him. But in those days the radiance of Finduilas also became dimmed, her footsteps slow, and her face grave, and she grew wan and thin, and Turin, perceiving this, surmised that the words of Gwindor had set fear in her heart of what might come to pass. In truth, Finduilas was torn in mind, for she honoured Gwindor and pitied him, and wished not to add one tear to his suffering. But against her will, her love for Turin grew day by day, and she thought of Beren and Luthien. But Turin was not like Beren. He did not scorn her, and was glad in her company, yet she knew that he had no love of the kind she wished. His mind and heart were elsewhere, by rivers and springs long past. Then Turin spoke to Finduilas and said, Do not let the words of Gwindor affright you. He has suffered in the darkness of Angband, and it is hard for one so valiant to be thus crippled, and backward perforce. He needs all solace, and a longer time for healing. I know it well. But we will win that time for him, said Turin. Nargothrond shall stand. Never again will Morgoth the Craven come forth from Angband, and all his reliance must be on his servants. Thus say Melion of Doriath. They are the fingers of his hands, and we will smite them, and cut them off, till he draws back his claws. Nargothrond shall stand. Perhaps, said she, it shall stand, if you can achieve it. But have a care, Thurin. My heart is heavy when you go out to battle, lest Nargothrond be bereaved. Afterwards, Turin sought out Gwindor, and said to him, Gwindor, dear friend, you are falling back into sadness. Do not so, for your healing will come in the houses of your kin, and in the light of Finduilas. Then Gwindor stared at Turin, but he said nothing, and his face was clouded. Why do you look upon me so? Said Turin. Often your eyes have gazed at me strangely of late. How have I grieved you? I have opposed your counsels, but a man must speak as he sees, nor hide the truth that he believes, for any private cause. I would that we were one in mind, for to you I owe a great debt, and I shall not forget it. Will you not? Said Gwindor. Nonetheless, your deeds and your counsels have changed my home and my kin. Your shadow lies upon them. Why should I be glad, who have lost all to you? Turin did not understand these words, and did but guess that Gwindor begrudged him his place in the heart and counsels of the king. But Gwindor, when Turin had gone, sat alone in dark thought, and he cursed Morgoth, who could thus pursue his enemies, with woe, whithersoever they might run. And now at last, he said, I believe the rumour of Morgoth has cursed Hurin and all his kin. And going to find Finduilas, he said to her, a sadness and doubt is upon you, and too often now I miss you, and begin to guess that you are avoiding me. Since you tell me not the cause, I must guess. Daughter of the house of Finalfin, let no grief lie between us, for though Morgoth has laid my life in ruin, you still I love. But go whither love leads you, for I am become unfit to wed you, and neither my prowess nor my counsel have any honour more. Then Finduilas wept. Weep not yet, said Gwindor, but beware lest you have cause. Not fitting is it that the elder children of Iluvatar should wed the younger, nor is it wise, for they are brief, and soon pass, to leave us in widowhood while the world lasts. Neither will fate suffer it, unless it be once or twice only, for some high cause of doom that we do not perceive. But this man is not barren, even if he be both as fair and as brave. A doom lies on him, a dark doom. Enter not into it, and if you will, your love shall betray you to bitterness and death. For hearken to me, though he be indeed Agawen, son of Umarth, his right name is Turin, son of Hurin, whom Morgoth holds in Angband, and has cursed all his kin. Doubt not the power of Morgoth Bauglir. Is it not written in me? Then Finduilas rose, and queenly indeed she looked. Your eyes are dimmed, Gwindor, she said. You do not see nor understand what is here come to pass. Must I now be put to double shame to reveal the truth to you? For I love you, Gwindor, and I am ashamed that I love you not more, but have taken a love even greater, from which I cannot escape. I did not seek it, and long I put it aside, but if I have pity for your hurts, have pity on mine. Turin loves me not, nor will. You say this, said Gwindor, to take the blame from him whom you love? Why does he seek you out, and sit long with you, and come ever more glad away? Because he also needs solace, said Finduilas, and is bereaved of his kin. You both have your needs, but what of Finduilas? Now is it not enough that I must confess myself to you unloved, but that you should say that I speak so to deceive? Nay, a woman is not easily deceived in such a case, said Gwindor, nor will you find many who will deny that they are loved, if that is true. If any of us three be faithless, it is I, but not in will. But what of your doom, and rumours of Angband? What of death and destruction? The Adunadel is mighty in the tale of the world, and his stature shall reach yet to Morgoth in some far day to come. He is proud, said Gwindor, but also he is merciful, said Finduilas. He is not yet awake, but still pity can ever pierce his heart, and he will never deny it. Pity, maybe, shall be ever the only entry, but he does not pity me. He holds me in awe, as I were both his mother and a queen. Maybe Finduilas spoke truly, seeing with the keen eyes of the Eldar, and now Turin, not knowing what had passed between Gwindor and Finduilas, was ever gentler towards her, as she seemed more sad. But on a time Finduilas said to him, Thurin Adanadel, why did you hide your name from me? Had I known who you were, I should not have honoured you less, but I should better have understood your grief. What do you mean? He said. Whom do you make me? Turin, son of Hurin Thalion, captain of the north. Now when Turin learned from Finduilas of what had passed, he was wrathful, and he said to Gwindor, In love I hold you, for rescue and safekeeping. But now you have done ill to me, friend, to betray my right name. and called down my doom upon me, from which I would lie hid. But Gwindor answered, the doom lies in yourself, not in your name. In that time of respite and hope, when because of the deeds of the Mormigil, the power of Morgoth was stemmed west of Sirion, and all the woods had peace, Morwen fled at last from Dorlomin with Nienor, her daughter, and adventured the long journey to Thingol's halls. There new grief awaited her, for she found Turin gone, and to Doriath there had come no tidings since the dragon helm had vanished from the lands west of Sirion. But Morwen remained in Doriath with Nienor as guests of Thingol and Melion, and were treated with honour.